So here we go, chapter 3. So chapter 3 is the continuation, and really we're going to get to learn about Shmuel's role, and finally we're going to be introduced to something which is not novel to our tradition. However, it is novel since the end of, if I can say, particularly, of course, Shoftim, but even more so with regards to Moshe and Yehoshua, particularly once Joshua basically passed away. The idea of something was not present, or it was very rare in life. Anybody wants to guess what it was?
Prophecy.
Yes, thank you, Philip. Prophecy was actually something that was not that commonplace, and we're going to be moving away from the Shoftim, where is more of Ruach Elokim, where we have this it's hard to explain what it is, but this inspiration from God, whereas now finally God, so to speak, speaks directly with the human being, or through visions, etc. But the message is, but now there is once again a connection or a need for that connection to be. So if we want to look at it historically, kind of look at it with Moshe. Moshe, of course, Lokam Navi ke Moshe. There was, he's the ultimate prophet, and then Joshua as well. There are Nevi'im afterwards as well who receive it, but not in the same amount of volume that Shmuel is going to receive. And then we're going to be introduced to this Nevu'ah today. So chapter 3. V'hanar Shmuel, and the young lad Shmuel, Misharet et Adonai lifnei Eli. He's in service of God under the auspices of the Kohen Gadol Eli. Udvar Adonai haya yakar b'mimahem, and prophecy, or the words of God, was rare, was not quite found in those days. Ein chazon nifrat, prophecy was not widespread. Vahi bayomahu, and it wasn't one day. Ve'eli shochev bimkomo, Eli was asleep in his usual place, in his quarters, in his room. Ve'inav hechelu chehot, and his eyes have begun to become heavy. His eyesight is going away a little bit. He's not as sharp. Lo yuchal lirot, it was difficult for him to see. V'ner Elohim terem yichbeh, the lamp of God had not yet gone out, hadn't yet extinguished. Any idea what is this Ner Elohim?
Meaning the light of the day. You're still alive.
So hold on. So someone said light of the day?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's approaching night.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a nice explanation. In other words, God created the sun and the heavens, everything. So perhaps it's that. It's a little bit more technical. Where are they right now? Where is Shemuel serving or in the service of God? Where does he live?
In the temple.
In the temple. So what's Ner Elohim? What was used in those days as
the menorah?
The menorah. Okay, so the menorah, there are two different lights that we have. There's the Ner Tamid, which we have right now in synagogue, which is usually centered above the ark. That is not representative of the menorah, because the menorah would be would not burn the entire day. That actually extinguished, and then they had to rekindle it the next day. But the fire on the altar had to be tamid, had to be everlasting, could not go out, continuous. So the Ner Tamid actually represents the fire on the altar, not the fire on the menorah. So if you notice, then we have kind of a depiction. Almost every single synagogue has another depiction of the menorah as well, right? Usually it's either on the wall. At the Shar, we have in the sanctuary with two candelabras on either side of the ark. And other shuls have it a different depiction, but usually it's also never it can't look like it. So it's not a carbon copy of what we believe the menorah is. It's an artistic vision, partly because what we do or what we represent We don't want to pretend like that's what it was. We have the original. The originals are lost to us. But here we're talking about the Ner Elohim, the menorah, the candelabra. And it's important for us to tell this. Why? Because of the place where he is. In other words, there's a location and there's a timestamp of when this is taking place. So this is before it is totally dark. And also this is taking place where? This is taking place in the Holy Temple. So V'ner Elohim ter michbeh. Yes.
But when we say it's taking place in the temple, this is before the time of Solomon.
Yes.
So it's really before the first temple. It's still
so that's why, if you notice, they say Behichal Adonai. This is in the quarter, so to speak.
God,
in Shiloh, you're right. In Shiloh and Megiddo, it was being transferred between Shiloh and Megiddo. This is technically they're still using the Mishkan.
That's right.
They haven't yet, but this was the central temple of Israel then. Michael, excellent point. This is not the built temple on Temple Mount. This is not what we're talking about. Excellent. But this is the central, where the central service is still taking place. So in the Mishkan. So the lamp of God had not yet gone out. Ushmuel shochev, and Shmuel also was sleeping, was lying down, Behichal Adonai, in the temple of the Lord, Asher Sham Aron Elohim, where the ark of God was. So they're telling us that we know where he is. He's not romping around. He's not backing. He is still in the service of God. He has not left the grounds. Vaikra Adonai el Shmuel, Vayomer Hineni. God called out to Samuel, and Samuel answered, I am here. Here I am. Hineni, by the way.
Same as the first response of Abraham.
Exactly. Hineni is not just here I am. It's a sign of readiness. In other words, what do you want me to do? In other words, I'm at your service. It's total submission to the will of God. It's
and
not
Leonard Cohen used it too.
100 exactly. The most recent is Hineni. Which is beautiful. He used it in a different context. He used it, I think he was alluding to the fact that, where he was in life and he was ready to go, and Hineni, I'm ready to be summoned, so to speak.
Is this the last instance with Shmuel that we have recorded in the Tanakh of a direct conversation between God and a human being?
No. He's gonna have nevuah. He's gonna have nevuah.
No, but once you get beyond Shmuel, we don't really have conversations anymore.
Right. There is Vaikra Shemel, and God calls out to other Nevi'im as well. Sometimes it's in the form of
a dream.
Here, there's an allusion to the fact that it's kind of a dream because he's falling asleep. He's asleep, but nonetheless, in his state of consciousness or unconsciousness, there is this conversation or transmission of a message which God is going to be conveying to Shmuel. Okay, so Shmuel clearly states, "I am ready. I'm here. I'm up. I'm at your service." So after this really brief and short, so to speak, if you want to say, call out by God to Samuel, he wakes up, Vayaratz el Eli, and he's obviously he wakes up and he runs to Eli, Vayomer hineni ki karatali, here I am, for you have called me. Anybody wants to explain this? Vayomer lo karati, shuv shechav, and Eli says, no, I didn't call you. Go return, go rest, go to sleep. Vayelech vayishkav, he returns and goes back to sleep. So anybody sees that's samach sagur. Sagur. This is the end of
that piece.
That conversation. Okay, so in other words, he's called. Shmuel says, "I'm here. I'm ready for you." Who does Shmuel think called him?
Eli.
He doesn't realize, he still hasn't grasped who is calling him. Okay, Eli goes to Eli. Eli says, "No, not me. I didn't call you. Go back, sleep. Maybe you heard something." Good. Vayosef Adonai kro od Shemuel. Once again, God calls out Samuel. Vayakam Shmuel vayelech el Eli. Once again, Samuel gets up and he goes over to Eli. Vayomer Hiraneni, and he says, "Here I am. Ki karatali, for you have called me." Vayomer lo karati v'ni shuv shechav. No, I haven't called you.
What do you?
Go back and go to sleep. So it happens again. This is time number 2. Ushmuel terem yadait Adonai v'terem yigale elav devar Adonai. Now Samuel had not yet experienced a direct conversation or direct contact with God, for the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. In other words, he had not yet had any prophecy. So this is new to him. He hears it. He thinks that Eli is calling him. So number 3, Vayosef Adonai kerosh Shmuel bashlishit. The Lord called one more time, for the 3rd time, Vayakom vayelech Eli. He once again wakes up, goes to Eli, Vayomer hineni, and
says,
Samuel says, I'm ready, here I am. Ki karatali, for you have called me. Vayaven Eli, finally Eli is the one who understands what is happening. Ki Adonai kore la'na'ar, for God
is calling the boy.
Is calling this lad. Now, I'm going to put it out to you and see if you can understand how does Eli know this? From what hint does he have that suddenly he's thinking, oh my God, he figures it out. How come Eli figures it out? And that actually has to be, pardon?
It's the 3rd time within a very brief time span.
Okay,
and he knows that, and he knows the nature of Shmuel, that he isn't playing games with him.
Okay. So perhaps, and it's actually rather simple. It's because if you remember, it is Eli who tells Hannah, right, his mother, Shmuel's mother, that he's going to have a child, but this is going to be a special child, and he has to be what? In the service of God. Why would at all? What's this service to God when he's not a Kohen or a Levi, right? Why would God require that particular lad to come to live in the temple, to be under the auspices of the Kohen, if this child is not going to be something special?
Well, that was that was effectively the agreement that God's making to Hannah when Hannah pleaded for a child.
Right, but what's my question is why? We've seen it with other cases also where Sarah or okay, so Sarah is different because the temple was not yet there, but in other cases there's also where children are barren. Or why specifically? He's giving her a child, but this child will have to be consecrated to the Lord.
Well, she volunteered it.
She didn't volunteer it. This was the agreement. She brought the child, yes,
but she promised she'd do it.
But I'm saying, why would that be a condition if the child is not going to be something special? In other words, it was already built in that this child would be in, and Eli figures it out, and he sees that there is a connection. It's not that this kid is just going to be free of service for the Kohanim, but this kid is going to be an enlightened child. This is a special human being. And now finally, Eli's the one who figures it out. Obviously, he's a lad. We're not sure how old he is. Na'ar sometimes is under the age of 13. Sometimes it could be an adolescent. It could be around 13, 14, 15 years old, depending. But I think he's younger. He must be before his bar mitzvah. Okay, so he doesn't understand. He hears a voice. He thinks he's sleeping really, really deeply, and he hears somebody calling him, and he's assuming that it's Eli. Remember, also, this is the temple. It's not with his house that there's another person living there, or his mother or his father or his brothers or his stepbrothers or stepsisters. No, they're alone. So who does he assume is calling him? Eli. But Eli realizes something greater is happening. So what does Eli tell him? Vayomer Eli lishmuel lech shechav. And so Eli summons Samuel and tells him and orders him, go lie down. However, if you are called again, if you are summoned again, ve'amarta daber Adonai, what you should say is, O Lord, speak. Ki shomea avdecha, for your servant is listening to you. Vayelech Shmuel, Shmuel listens to Eli, Vayishkav b'mkomo, and he goes to his resting place where he sleeps, and he goes to bed. Vayavo Adonai Vayit and the Lord came to Shmuel, and he stood there, and he's standing. The idea is not he's permanent there. He's not going to be moved. In other words, now it's going to be a monumental conversation. Vaikra chefam befam Shmuel Shmuel, and once again, just as he called beforehand, he calls Shmuel Shmuel. Where does it sound familiar, Michael? You said it beforehand.
To Abraham in the beginning in Breshit.
Right. If you remember, in Avraham, Vayomer Hineni. So now this is actually backwards. He says Hineni, and then Vaikra Shmuel Shmuel, but it's an allusion as well to the same call of this double entendre. Double entendre, when somebody is called double names, repetitious, it's a sign of love and sign of connection. Okay, Avraham. It's not that Shmuel can't hear, but it's we use it in the Torah wherever we have that double entendre where that repetition occurs. It is a deep connection of love and devotion. So God is calling him out of a deep connection to he's going to be creating a very deep connection with Shmuel. So he calls him double. Shmuel. Vayomer Shmuel daber ki shomei avdecha. Finally, Shmuel listens to Eli and he says, "Please speak, for your servant is listening." Vayomer Adonai el Shmuel. And so God continues and he says to Shmuel, Hine anochi oseh davar be'Israel. I'm going to do something within the Israelites. Asher kol shomo tatzilena shtei oznav. In which anyone who hears this, their ears are going to tingle or they're going to stand up. In other words, they're going to take notice. I'm going to do something so great that whoever hears of this thing is going to be bewildered. Any questions? Okay. Bayom ha'u akim el Eli et asher dibarti el beito hachel v'chale. That day, what I'm going to do is I will fulfill against Eli all that I spoke concerning his house from beginning to end. Do you remember I shared with you that in chapter number 2, his household was not following and was dishonoring the kehuna by what they were doing, and in the way that they were taking the fat of all the korbanot, which actually was supposed to be given to God first, not eaten by the kohanim. They would tithe, they would force payment, and it was an abomination. And God said that their kehuna is going to be cut off. And now God is warning. He's saying, I'm going to fulfill that which I promised will happen to the household of Eli. Vehigadatilo, and I have told Eli, Hishofet ani et beito ad olam, for I have sentenced his house to endless punishment. Ba'avon asher yada, that sin which he is aware of what his sons are doing, because it came to his ear, and he did not rightfully put his foot down. He tried to coax him. I say this is almost like lahavdil today. We have with Iran. We'll try to coax them into. If we make things, they'll understand. They'll be friendly, rather than putting down a firm hand. Nope. Ki mekalelim lahem banav. For his sons committed sacrilege, or mekalelim is that they swear using the profanity of God. Velo chiha bam, and Eli did not rebuke them. He did not strongly stop what they were doing. Velachen, and therefore, nishbati leveit Eli, I have promised to the household of Eli, imit kaper avon beit Eli, bezevach uvmincha adolam. I've promised that there will never be any forgiveness, whether they give sacrifices or offering, they can never go back to being forgiven. In other words, there's nothing that they can do to be forgiven for what they have done. Vaishkav Shmuel had a boker, and Samuel lay there until the morning. Vaiftachet daltot beit Adonai, and he opened the doors of the house of the Lord. Ushmuel yareh mehagidet hamar'ah el Eli. However, Samuel is afraid. Samuel is petrified to report, to tell Eli what had been connected with him. So now let's just go back again. You have this to understand why Samuel is in this put between a rock and a hard place. He's been taken in by Eli. Eli treats him like a child, and he says Eli loves him. And what does Samuel, who is technically a stranger, right, comes in? He's the one who's having the connection with God. And what is he about? What does he know? What is he scared of telling? That he's the bearer of bad news about what God had spoken to him. Not only that, Eli knows that God called him out. So do you think Eli is going to be curious about what happened after the third time? Did God call you out? What did he give you? What's going on? So Samuel knows that it's just a matter of time before Eli will ask. If he doesn't say it, Eli's going to ask. That's why, if you can tell, he at a boker vayftach et daltot beit Hashem. He woke up. He's the first one who woke up. He most likely wasn't able to sleep throughout the whole night. Vaikra Eli et Shmuel. Lo and behold, Eli summons Shmuel. Vayomer Shmuel b'ni, and he says, Samuel, my son. And Samuel responds, Vayomer hineni, here I am. How can I be of service? Vayomer. And Eli continues, Ma hadavar sher diber elecha. What ended up being last night? What was the final thing? Did God come back to you? What did he say? Al na techached mimeni. Please do not withhold nothing with me. Don't hold anything back from me. Ko yaseh lecha Elohim v'cho yosif. Thus and more God do to you. Im techached mimeni davar mikol hadavar sher diber lecha. If you keep from me a single word of all that he said to you. So, in other words, Eli says, please do not hold back. Let me know exactly what did God tell you last night? Vayaged lo Shmuel et kol hadvarim, and lo and behold, Samuel told him everything. V'lo chiched mimenu, he withheld nothing from him. Vayomar Hashem hu, and Eli said, yep, this is God speaking. Hatov beinav yaseh, he will do what he deems is right. In other words, he recognizes that a judgment has befallen, and he knows that there's no escape. Whatever God wants to do, God will do, and now he is at his mercy. Vaigdal Shmuel.
Yassi, could you just stop for a half moment? Could you remind us again the difference between having a Thay and a Samach at the end?
Okay. So I'm gonna annotate.
That means Boteach is open.
Yeah, I'm gonna annotate. So the entire text. Anybody who's seen how Torah is written? Torah is written in columns, right? Like words that go across, and they basically make a nice big column. Sometimes there's words that end here, and it doesn't take the entire line, sentence.
Yeah.
Sometimes patuach means this remains open.
Open. Yeah, I figured it meant open.
And then the writing continues on the next line. Okay, do you see it? So so if you looked at it from afar, there'd be like something missing here. And that's a hard return, if you will, so to speak. Sometimes it's sagur, which is written like this.
With a Samach, that's what
and then it continues after a little space open. There's another. There's another writing in the same sentence. Do you see it?
But that means it's a new conversation, right?
New conversation, kind of like a comma, semicolon, but it's within the same the same context, or the same idea. It's a continuation, but a break. The patuach here, okay, is kind of like a new chapter.
See that.
Okay, here it's a continuation, but a new idea, but a continuation. So there's a space here, but the sentence is closed, sagur. Do you see it? It's written in totally. So sagur means from here to here it's written. Patuach means this place is opened. This space is open. Can you see it? So
Yeah.
now I'll show you kind of what it would look like. I can just, come on, where's my annotator? Where's my eraser? So if I erase this, and I erase this, right, sorry, it would look something like this. I'm gonna re-annotate it for you. So there's a clear, okay, where is it? Moved over here. Here we go. Okay, thank you. So here it's patuach, and in this case, more lines, etc., etc. It's gonna written, and suddenly we have here this, and then it continues writing on the same sentence like that. Okay, do you see it? And etc. Does everybody see the difference? Okay, so that's the samach, sagur, and patuach. All right. Let me just, I'll take all those. Boop, 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 boop. Oh, it's gonna go backwards. Oh.
I understand the patuach, but I'm mixed up about the other one.
Sagur means it's closed. That whole sentence is closed, but there's a space in the middle.
Why is there a space in the middle?
It's kind of like, just to make sure that it's the ideas is it's a new, we're moving into a new idea.
Is it
Understand?
sort of a distance between a paragraph?
Don't look at it. You can't really use our grammatic structure today to that which has been used. You can kind of, the idea is it's a hard stop. The conversation stops here.
Yes.
And patuach it's kind of a continuation, that's same, but it's a different scene, if you will. So there is a separation. It's one idea, but it's kind of within the same thought. Does that do you understand?
I got another analogy, but I don't know if it's any good. Sort of like a hallway between two things.
Yeah, and there's a connection, but very clear that when they are writing it, that it stops here. Part of it is also how it was configured in the text, so that every single manuscript that was written would be exactly the same. So this is a tradition that was Torah Mimoshe, that some are sagur, some are patuach, some are open sentences, some are closed, but there are spaces in between. So in other words, when you go to a Sefer Torah, no matter which one you'll go, there will be those spaces, or that sentence would end there after that word. Will be regardless of which Sefer Torah you write. Understand? It's not like I give, I'm dictating right now, and each one of you will write. One might write one whole long sentence. One might write it on different lines. Some on different 5 lines, 6 lines, 12 lines, 80 lines, whatever it might be. No, this with all the breaks exactly where they are going to be. Okay, so one is a hard break, one is a pause into the next idea. Okay? So now let me just get rid of that. Beautiful. So, Vaigdal Shmuel, and Samuel grew up. In other words, this is after a few years. The Adonai Hayayimo, and God was with him. Velohi Pil Mikol Devarav Arza. He did not leave any of Samuel's predictions unfulfilled. So, in other words, whatever God sends to Shmuel, and Shmuel utters, and or he shares, that is what happens. Vayeda Kol Yisrael Midan ve'ad Be'er Shava ki ne'eman Shmuel lenavi l'Adonai. And the nation has learned from Dan to Beersheba, throughout the whole land, everybody knew that Shmuel was a trustworthy prophet of the Lord. So part of it was building his persona, building his name, building his, today we would say building his brand, okay? But people knew who he was. People learned of him, that he was trustworthy. Whatever would be uttered out of his mouth, that is the word of the Lord. Why is that important to say?
Well, it's a matter that when, during the course of his life, when he prophesied that the community would recognize that he was legitimate and that he was really speaking the word of God.
Okay, perfect. So this is really, again, this is the first, this is the beauty of what we have learned, is we've seen kind of a transition of a close connection with God. Imagine the people of Israel who saw God coming down on the mountain, so to speak, or felt it, and they didn't see, but they felt God's might, awesomeness come. They saw the 10 commandments. That generation is not allowed to enter into the land of Israel. The moment that Moses passes away, suddenly the level of nevuah is reduced, but Joshua has it as well, but not to that same capability. And then not only is nevuah, so to speak, is lost, but the people are no longer together also, right? They inherit a land. They're living in different places. There's nothing to keep them together. Okay, I'm going to kind of draw in terms of a quick history. There's nothing to keep them on the same page. And what do we see? We see this wickedness that arises in the land as they are influenced by those that live around them or within them, because not yet everybody, all the foreigners have been kicked out. Okay, and so they profane to God. God comes down. However, he brings in, remember, the shoftim, judges, who are inspired by God. Some of them do have a sort of nevuah, but they're not considered really nevi'im on the same level. Okay, they are inspired to lead the people, and the people return back to God. God seizes their punishment, and it happens again, until finally the end of Shoftim, and now we're in a different chapter of history. Finally, we're going to reintroduce into the Israelite experience that which kept them together, an umbrella. What is it? It's nevuah, it's prophecy. Direct lineage or direct connection, the red phone with God. That's what's going to be doing it. That's what's going to be connecting with. And it's super important that Shmuel is not seen as there were false nevi'im. There were people who prophesied, believe that they were prophesizing the word of God. And if something didn't come true, what would say? Well, no, it's not now. It's later on. God must be sleeping. This is not the case right now. But you'll see, I'm going to be right. No. With Shmuel, whatever was said, that's what was going to be. And part of that is to reunify everyone. If everybody believes in one, that means everybody will follow whatever Shmuel says. So that now we're having once again a reunification, so to speak, of the people. Does the picture, can you see it? Okay, so it's super important that right now we understand that we're going to finally have this reunification. By the way, from Shmuel, we're going to shortly learn that not only is nevuah introduced, but another level of leadership, and that is going to be having literally a king, or having a human being, a flesh and blood, who kind of takes charge, makes decisions. The king in the Bible is very different than what we think right now. A king, we think of King Charles sitting in a beautiful home and benefiting from whatever monarch benefits from, etc. Can get on a plane, do whatever they want, etc. No, this is somebody who is in charge of battle, the first person to take the nation to battle, the first person to make decisions, to set a structure. A king was literally a public servant. Yes, a king had obviously perks, but had huge responsibilities, huge responsibilities. So This is going to be also introduced shortly. So we see from chaos, which was really in the days of Shoftim, and we saw it how Shoftim ended, that anybody did whatever they wanted. Now we have to rein this in. And how we're going to rein it in? Number one, we're going to have a leader. First of all, it's a spiritual leader. And then under the guide of the spiritual leader, there's going to be actually a day-to-day, so to speak, leader who's going to take the people by the hand with the instruction from the Navi, who's going to be Shmuel. Okay, so we're going to be introduced to it, but that is why it's important to lay out in terms of what this Navi is. Samuel has the trust of the people, so people are going to listen to him. Vayosef Adonai lehera'ov v'Shilo, and the Lord continued to appear in the house of the Lord, which was stationed in Shiloh. Kinigla Adonai el Shmuel b'Shilo bidvar Adonai. For the Lord himself was revealed to Samuel at Shiloh, all the time spreading the word of the Lord. Why is that double entendre? Can you see it? It's double again. That is to highlight that the truth was, or the reality was what they said. Whatever came out, that's what happened. And this is the setup for the next phase, so to speak, of how the structure or the social structure is going to suddenly change in Israel, which is super important.
Jesse,
Yes, Farla.
can I wanted to ask you, how many times has the Lord appeared and spoken to a person in the Bible? Is it not common, or?
Great question. I cannot tell you. I'm not a scholar of that. I can tell you. I've counted exactly how many times God appeared and God sent a message, etc. It's not like email. You can go and trace back the IP and number and confirm. I don't have that. I don't have that. I don't have that on my fingertips. However, in this period of time, in this particular period of time, this connection between man or Israelites, if you want to say, and the word of God was very rare, which means it did happen here and there, perhaps. And that really, I think, is an allusion to the Shoftim, but it did not happen on a continual basis or a concrete basis that there was this regular interchange.
But Yossi, oh, no, go
Or
ahead.
relationship, yes. Yes,
My
Mike.
question actually was going to follow up on Farley's, and it's what I had raised earlier. Can we really analogize Shmuel's interaction with God, same as with Moshe and the Shalosh Avot? Because with Moshe certainly, and even with Yehoshua to an extent, they're actually conversing with God and with Hashem and arguing back and forth.
So great question. Before we get into it, let's go through, rather than giving you, what's going to happen, let's go through the chapters as we are, and we're going to see this relationship grow. How God relates to Shmuel. But the important thing, which is really interesting, which I want to stress to you, because this is really the epitome of who Shmuel was. And we will actually see it right around Purim. And it's with the story of Saul with Shaul, when Shaul actually loses his kingdom over what he doesn't do. Follow this chapter. Sets up two things. Sets up, number one, that Shmuel will not withhold whatever God says, no matter how dire or how bad the nevuah might be. Shmuel does not sugarcoat it. He says it as is. Eli kind of trained him when he told him, do not withhold anything. Tell it to me as is, verbatim. And Samuel follows the word of God exactly as it is transmitted to him. At the same time, that causes the trustworthiness, because he doesn't start fiddling and diddling and he doesn't. No, sometimes it's really hard to take what he's about to say, or it's a very difficult commandment that he's instruct somebody to do. That whoever does not follow what Shmuel does, pays for it. But that's because also of what Shmuel becomes. He becomes this really straight. He shoots his arrow, a straight shooter. He doesn't withhold, but doesn't change anything either. Not for his good or bad. This is the way it is. And that is also why he's able to have that trust of everybody. Because whatever he knows, whatever he says is not wishy-washy. And you have to look at that as well with the backdrop of the way that the Holy Temple is being run, which is corruption. So this is a fresh new look, if you want to look at it, as the Kohanim, right? They become rich and they start doing things for their own good and not for the people's, to service the people. Suddenly now you have somebody who is putting out his neck out on the line, because some people don't want to hear what he's going to say, but he's going to say it as is, and whatever he says, they know it's going to happen. So if it's going to be something bad because they're misbehaving, they know that they're misbehaving, because whatever he says, nothing to do for his own well-being. Okay? It sets up for the future and for the progression of the social structure of Israel as a people, as they finally start to create a much more structured and a much more unified, if we can say, land and society, which is at the end of the day, which is what the Navi is there to do. Okay. Anybody with any other questions?
No, that's fine.
So the beauty of the next couple of chapters, as well as pretty much the entire Shmuel Aleph and Shmuel Bet, as well as Malachim, is it's very narrative. So we hear historical stories, and some of them are interconnected. Some of them they jump. It's not always chronological, but it's beautiful. We learn a little bit of the way that how a young nation needed also direction, even though they were not that far away, not that far removed from actually experiencing God, yet how quickly each and every one of us can change without proper direction. I think that's a very, very important lesson. And also to have order in our life. Order is super important. I want to just connect this to one thing. This week's Torah portion of Parshat Bo. What is the first commandment that God commands the Israelites as they're going to be freed? What's the first commandment?
I'm the Lord your God.
Nope. What's the first commandment I'm not talking about in the 10 Commandments. What's the first commandment? What does God instruct them to do as they're freed? When he tells them today you're free, what are they supposed to do?
Observe his rules.
Oh, observe the moon.
Close, very close, Peter.
Well, the period of the moon, the beginning.
Right. So, HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. The first thing to do is to establish this month for you as the head of the months.
Yeah, the calendar.
In other words, create a calendar.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they have all these meetings to go to. They have all these deadlines to perform.
Mm-hmm.
They were just slaves. What's so important for them to establish this calendar system? And it's a very important lesson that God is telling us. As slaves, they were not masters of their own time. Be here, be there. We need you here. Come here at 7. Come here. Come there. Go there. They have no sense or control of their time. And in order, the first thing that for success is to make sure that you are using your time wisely, well, and that it's structured, that you have that sense of structure. Without a structure, things fall apart, or there's going to be chaos, because there's no same. The units are not the same. You can't speak the same language, so to speak, in terms of time or space. It means nothing. So the first thing to do is establish an order. And that is really also similar to what we are witnessing right now with the social structure that is happening right now in Israel, is that they're going to be building order again. Because beforehand, everybody was without order. Everybody's doing whatever the heck they want to do, whatever they think is right. and simply not working. There's got to be structure, and that's what we're going to be building, a structure. Okay. I thought it was beautiful for the connection. I'm gonna